Dream or reality? Doesn't she look bad? Asked a slightly hoarse voice that I had never heard before. I beg your pardon, Your Grace. I specifically included this condition in the summoning spell. However, I can't promise more, because magic in our world is melting away, and wasting it on whims is no longer advisable. You needed a woman who was an outcast in her own world, so I brought her here, with minimal injuries, although that horrendous rusty machine could crush her to mincemeat. But done. An upset older person justified himself, as far as one could judge from the sound of his voice. How could you take her away from there? Couldn't they have brought someone more presentable? Your Grace, I did everything I could. In my opinion, among the possible options, this is not the worst. I still didn't understand what exactly happened. My head was spinning, and the world around me was melting away, as if I was reliving that unfortunate incident. However, the word outcast responded poignantly. What can I say? But this stranger was right. No one really needed me. My parents left this world when I was finishing university. My husband left me when the doctors predicted a sad outcome of the incident. Said received only a scratch and a slight head injury, and I was assembled like a construction set. Friends condemned me for leaving my ex penniless after the divorce, and I stopped communicating with them. For some time after the incident, I continued to work from home from my hospital room, but since my work always involved a lot of travel, I had to quit and transfer clients to colleagues. But I didn't have time for self-pity. It was necessary to recover, and disability benefits were extremely small. To reduce housing costs, I had to sell a 4-room apartment. The difference between the money received and money spent had to be invested in treatment. Even with such efforts, I only managed to achieve the ability to move with a stick. I was faced with the task of doing several more operations, but I needed funds that I did not have. As a result, I was left, Eliza Darcy, 34 years old, a disabled person of the second group, unemployed, and of no use to anyone except myself. So what did the unknown old man say? Not the worst option? Not bad, considering the circumstances. While I was coming to my senses and my vision was returning, my hands instinctively searched for my trusty stick and felt its cold handle with relief. Now I had to figure out what was happening to me and what to do next. "You see, your lordship, she regained consciousness," exclaimed the old man with glee. "Okay, stop. This means that the truck that was rushing towards me as I was crossing the road was real. I wouldn't be able to jump back in time, but it turns out he ran into me anyway. Or have you never encountered this? The elder said that I was supposed to disappear, but he took me somewhere. You need peace of mind, Eliza, because you have already experienced these hallucinations. Anesthesia plus nightmares. It was real nonsense. I swear I wouldn't want anyone else to go through this. All this nonsense with your grace, transference and magic was confusing. And surprisingly, the cane turned out to be surprisingly real. Once my vision cleared, I made the usual motion to adjust my glasses. Wait, glasses? Shouldn't they have died in the moment of impact? My inner voice screamed that something was wrong here. Bending my knees a little to rise, I suddenly felt something pulling me back. Scanning my hand over my shoulders and back, I realized that I was still wearing a backpack with medical records and all sorts of necessary little things, such as pills, water, and elastic bandages. That's why it was so uncomfortable to lie down. Looking at the floor, I saw that it was not covered with the usual laminate, linoleum, or parquet, but with massive stone slabs, decorated with symbols and images, radiating in all directions. I even rubbed my eyes, lifting my glasses slightly. What are these miracles? And then we met. I was able to get up only the second time, and the discoveries followed literally one after another. Firstly, the pattern on the floor turned out to be a pentagram, strangely familiar from all those mystical series and fantasy novels that I loved to read. Secondly, this hall, yes, exactly a hall, and not just a room, was something like a real hall of a medieval castle, and this was not a cheap performance. Everything around screamed about authenticity. And thirdly, the men standing next to me, it seemed to me, knew nothing about modern clothing. Their tops were quite long and reminiscent of the clothes of the times of Henry VIII or Elizabeth I. But instead of traditional trousers, they wore almost modern wide trousers that were pulled into over the knee boots. My mind searched for logic in what I was seeing, until a large man of about 45 said to the man frantically fiddling with the medallion, "If she starts to panic, I'll blame you, old man." "What should I do in case of hysteria, Your Grace? This is a natural reaction. I mean shock, Your Grace," the old man answered, clinging to the amulet. Despite the desire to give vent to my feelings, I understood that tears were not needed. We looked at each other. No one was in a hurry to start the conversation first. The question was to find out what was going on as quickly as possible, even though I risked losing my mind. But as my former boss laughed, with my slow brain, I was always extremely reasonable in unusual situations, and only when the work was done did I start to worry. Remembering that politeness is the best weapon, I decided to break the silence. "Good afternoon. My name is Eliza Darcy. Be so kind as to tell me where I ended up." "I am Adam Luster Roganborn, Duke of the Northwestern Lands." "You're in my castle," the big man introduced himself. "So therefore, before me is Duke and Magician. Fun and completely incomprehensible. I just wanted to close my eyes and open them to find that all this was nothing more than a stupid obsession." The Duke gave me an appraising look, from which I raised my chin, ready to defend my dignity. "Eliza? So you're Milka, right?" My face twitched with displeasure. This name has always annoyed me. "The chocolate cow's name is Milka, and my name is Eliza." I squeezed out the words through my teeth, trying to calm down. My remark was met only with a contemptuous laugh from the Duke. "I will remember, but remember that your obstinate behavior can cause problems." The old man began to mutter anxiously again, as he apparently felt responsible for the current situation. "My lord, I have been tasked with finding an unwanted woman under 35 years of age for marriage. I completed the task. It will take years to find someone with certain personality traits, and we don't have that time. You know how in a hurry. Your Majesty, your brother, what happened made me freeze. Marry? With me?" I barely closed my mouth, trying to suppress the panic that arose. After all, I had just ended my previous marriage, and had not yet had time to regain my health. Not to mention the fact that due to my physical condition, I am not capable of motherhood, as well as fulfill the duties of a wife. But perhaps my shortcomings will turn out to be a blessing. At least they will save me from forced marriage. All that remains is to subtly and tactfully communicate your limitations. I was finally convinced that I was somewhere special when I saw lightning falling from the tips of the wizard's fingers every time the Duke expressed his displeasure. "Let's leave here while the servants prepare the hall for the ceremony. We have a lot to talk about. How could it happen that you turned out to be so handicapped?" said the Duke, noticing my difficult gait when I tried to follow him with a cane. I should have been outraged by the Duke's words, but I learned not to react to pitying glances or underestimation. It was self-defense. So maybe the future spouse, seeing my condition, will give up this sad thought of marrying me. The first obstacle was to help me with this. The stairs were tall and intimidating, as if they offered two options: stay down or try to climb up and risk your life. Gritting my teeth and grabbing my cane, I began to rise. Fortunately, I had glasses and a cane, without which I would have had to act entirely by touch, which would have been full of danger. Luckily, it wasn't a spiral staircase. When I finally reached the last step, the Duke was waiting for me with displeasure at the top, casting displeased glances at the wizard. I was led through a hall that looked like a reception room, with benches along the walls and several armchairs by the fireplace, apparently reserved for important guests. My suspicions were confirmed when we walked through the massive doors into the office, and to my great satisfaction, I was seated in one of the chairs. "She must be interested in the question of why you are here," the Duke began without preamble. "I urgently need a wife." "What does this have to do with me? Isn't it easier to find a bride here in this world?" I answered. The Duke's face distorted even more, and the muscles on his cheeks tensed. "Look at me. What do you see?" I adjusted my glasses, but didn't find anything frightening in his appearance. Yes, the Duke, Renard Wolfred Grail, was tall and strong, clearly the result of many hours of training. His blurry black eyes looked at me, waiting for my decision. He had a straight nose and dimples on his high cheekbones, which gave him a special charm. A thick mustache and close-cropped beard framed his face, and a pair of distinct scars adorned his forehead. His hazel-colored hair curled easily and was slightly fluffy from a recent hat or helmet. His skin was weathered and covered with fine wrinkles, But if you did not pay attention to the traces of smallpox that seemed to appear on his cheeks, he looked like a typical man, stern, and perhaps trying to appear so. Warrior is exactly the word that came to mind. Nothing special, just a man, I expressed my opinion. Renard flashed his eyes sharply and poked himself in the cheek. You hurt me? Traces of smallpox. And what? He stood up full of anger. I'm mutilated. I'm a monster. Who will agree to this? I was stunned by his reaction. There was definitely pockmarks, but that didn't make him a freak. Over time, such things simply cease to be noticed. What if there is someone who doesn't consider this a problem? You're definitely weird. I pushed my glasses onto my forehead and sighed, rubbing my tired eyes with my palms. For some reason, it's still foggy. Could you clarify? My father was a king because I am his third son, because of my birth and the illness I once suffered. I came into this world far from the prescribed standards of beauty. This makes my situation worse. The palace values nobility of image and external attractiveness, which I do not have, and therefore it is impossible to find a suitable wife. There is only one woman I would like to marry, but for this, I need to first listen to my brother's proposal after completing a certain mission. If the courtiers preferred to be refined and graceful, then Renard seemed to fly out of this order. However, I wanted to get to the bottom of this. But you are still the king's son. Doesn't your rank matter? The chosen lady does not agree to tolerate your, peculiarity in exchange for status. The trouble is, she herself is the embodiment of beauty and longs to see a husband worthy of her next to her. The pain in his eyes was so deep that I almost felt sorry for him. Wait, Eliza. I need to put my glasses back on my nose or I'll see something wrong. And if something happens, you can always blame repeated mistakes in appearance. Wait, how do I fit into this plan? In our world, magic still exists, although there is not much of it left. She can change appearance and ensure that offspring inherit new traits rather than old ones. But the services of magicians cost a fortune, and without royal approval, they cannot be purchased at any price. My brother agrees to approve this for the magician, but only if I fulfill my part of the deal, and this is only possible in marriage. I began to feel that I had been deceived. It is clear that family relationships in this country were surprisingly complex, and the obsession with physical beauty was incomprehensible. Is divorce possible in your world? I ventured to ask. Only if there are good reasons for this, Renard answered gloomily. So what's the point of marrying me if you already have a chosen one? Are you plotting something against me? Renard looked at me displeasedly, as if I were a naughty child. I'm not going to kill you under any circumstances. Do not be afraid. Such assurances only strengthened my suspicions. Perhaps he intended to send me to a monastery? My hopes of escaping this strange marriage were fading. Fairly tired from lying for a long time on the uneven surface of the backpack and climbing the stairs, I felt terrible. However, I tried to remain calm and distracted by moving my body. Look at me carefully. Do you think I can be a good wife? I inserted. Absolutely not. You move like a grasshopper, as if both legs are broken, Renard confirmed, not hiding his disappointment. As it is, after the accident, the doctors literally pieced me together. It's hard to even walk, and there's no need to talk about any responsibilities. I could fall apart right here and now. I won't have children. All this is physically impossible. Oh, why did you come, unfortunate one? Renard muttered, not hiding his irritation. Only for a moment did I hear his words. He continued, and you won't have to. We have such a thing as a probationary period in marriage to check whether the spouses can live together. You are just that case. After the expiration of the term, the marriage is dissolved if it does not suit both parties. This information inspired me. Why are you looking for me then? Why don't you choose someone else and pay this woman? His answer was unsatisfactory. But here origin is against me. Many people want to take advantage of my status. Those who agreed with me set such conditions that even the magician had nothing to pay with. I'm running out of time. Brother, given my situation, approved your call. Not you personally, of course, but someone like you. So send me home, attract someone else. He answered reservedly. This is impossible. There is no turning back. Imagine that for your world you are dead and will remain here forever. There will be no other permissions, even if you turn out to be insane. So whether you like it or not, you are the key to my desire. What strange connections between brothers, if one sets conditions for the other. And this preoccupation with appearance also raises questions. I tried to re-enter the role of history. What if we say that I'm in danger in your world? Or if I get so upset that I want to leave you? Roganborn sighed, wincing from unpleasant thoughts. Divorces are rare among us and require a very important reason. So, other than your desire to marry another woman, why do you want to contact me? Isn't there a more suitable option? The Duke turned away and looked out the window. Deep wrinkles appeared on his cheeks. How to explain? You were not chosen by chance. You are the weak link, and that's the whole point. My thoughts became foggy. I thought bitterly about the following. It means that no one needs me here either, just a tool in the wrong hands. My cheeky shortcomings and failures paradoxically turned into advantages. Therefore, everything planned, your wedding with someone else, your political step, everything will collapse if I do not fulfill the role expected of me. Exactly, the Duke's eyes sparkled. We'll have to find a way to do it convincingly so that everyone will believe it. I shrugged, feeling indifferent within myself. After all, my heart no longer yearned for anything. So what do you expect from me? My voice sounded tired and lifeless. Give me time and I would figure everything out differently, but I have limitations and don't have time. You and I have to play a comedy. We must present our marriage as real, even if it is just a temporary measure. I walked to the window and looked down to see the peaceful scenery of this incredible place. For the first time in a long time, I will feel some courage. Perhaps my stay here will not be the worst option. Perhaps this will give me a chance to look at everything with new eyes and even change my life. Doomedly taking the cane in my hands, I threw away the irritating feelings. In that case, I have no choice, right? Roganborn crossed his arms over his chest. You will have to choose. Either agree to the conditions, or in a year you will find yourself on the street. Remembering my law professor's words about additional freedom of choice and the ability to change circumstances, I asked, what are these conditions? We will sign 2 agreements. First, once your marriage ends, you will have no rights to title, marital property, or jewelry. But according to the second, I will provide you with a house in my duchy, the place of which you choose, and I will pay a significant sum. After a pause, he continued. As for freedom of movement around the castle and the duchy, there are no restrictions. If you want to leave the castle walls, I will provide you with security. I digested what I heard, realizing that over time I could find a way to adapt to new conditions. Why should the house be in the duchy? He was briefly distracted by some noise outside and, turning away from the table, answered, This is a security issue. As my ex-wife, you will remain under my protection. I remembered the story of one island state from my world and smiled internally. Thoughts were about my future, and thoughts about the favorable development of events, as in that story. How to communicate with your people. After all, my world and yours are different. The magician was active in the conversation for the first time. I put my magic into your call so that you could understand our language. This also applies to reading. I thanked him sincerely. The opportunity to communicate and read was precious. And in my case, this opened up many new opportunities for adaptation in this new world. Thinking about the library in the castle, I already saw myself immersed in the study of books that would further enrich my knowledge and help me find my place in this unknown world. Despite the strangeness of the situation, a quiet spark of new confidence flared within me. Maybe this will not just be a forced exile from the familiar world, but the beginning of something more, something new. Okay, Renard, I agree. My voice sounded more decisive than I expected. We will sign your agreement. I'm doing my part. Let's see what this year brings and what the fate is. He appeared. Gratitude shone in his eyes and he visibly relaxed. The year flew by unnoticed. During all the time spent in the castle and its circulation, I learned more than in all the previous years of my former life. The history and language of this new world is important to me. I immerse myself in its culture and customs. Renard turned out to be not such a tyrant, as long as we found a common language, and our connection became deeper than just a fictitious marriage. When it came time to sign the divorce papers, I stopped, overwhelmed by my own feelings. A sudden realization hit me. I didn't want to leave. The castle has become my home, Renard. Renard, I stirred. The search for the right words seemed endless. He looked at me, and there were questions and something else in his gaze. "What do you want to say?" His voice sounded gentle. I don't want a divorce," I admitted, and my words hung in the air between us, light and along with dark obstacles. In response to my words, he smiled, a smile that completely changed his seemingly stern appearance. He walked towards me and took my hands. His next words were quiet but full of determination. "Eliza, I don't want a divorce either. The feelings I have for you have exceeded all my expectations." At this moment, all offers disappeared. An unexpected turn of fate not only gave me a new life in an unknown world, but also gave me the opportunity of true love, a feeling that I had never encountered before. So we decided to call up conditional circumstances, to save the marriage that had turned into a political maneuver, but turned into something as real and reverent as the fairy tales I loved as a child. We are both ready to learn and grow together, exploring the depth and complexity of this thing called life and love. And as soon as I picked up my cane and turned away from the fire with gratitude for what lived in my heart, I realized that our story was just beginning.